Many people buy firearms to improve their sense of security and safety. Ironically, most of these same people either store or handle these weapons in a way that actually jeopardizes their safety. All too often, guns fall into the hands of children with tragic results. Owning a weapon is more than a right. It is a responsibility. Chances are that if someone is injured through the negligent handling of your firearm, you will be held accountable. Despite attempts by legislators in recent years to curb or ban the sales of handguns, sales of all types of weapons are on the rise. Even if your family does not own a gun, chances are that many of your neighbors do. For this reason, children especially need to be educated about firearms. Regardless of how you feel about the existing gun laws, the reality is that more innocent people are getting shot by accident than by criminals. It should be your foremost priority to see that the members of your family understand the basics of gun safety. Gun in the House will teach you simple and effective ways to child-proof your weapons. You'll also learn what to tell your children about guns. We'll show you the myths, realities, and legalities of personal security. You'll discover why so many people are shot by unloaded weapons. We'll teach you how to avoid becoming a victim and what to do until the police arrive. Gun in the House is a comprehensive guide to gun safety. Use it as a tool to protect your family and your home. Child-proofing your weapons. Many people think that they can hide their guns from their children. Statistics prove that they can't. No matter where you hide a gun, it's only a matter of time before your children will find it. Consider this. The growing number of tragedies involving children with guns is only the tip of the iceberg. In reality, a very small percentage of guns that children handle ever discharge. Of that number, fewer still ever damage anything or hit anyone. The only incidents that are ever reported involve injury or death. But millions of children play with guns every day and never get caught. Frightening? You bet. It's up to you as a gun owner to keep your gun from ending up in the hands of a child. There are many ways to ensure that your children will not be injured by your gun. Keep in mind that hiding the gun is not one of them. One good method of securing a firearm is to always store the unloaded firearm separately from the ammunition. Keep your weapon in a locked drawer and make sure that only you have the key. You can lock your firearms and render them inoperable with a gun lock. Aside from making your firearm harmless to children, these locks also make them inaccessible to thieves. Many padlocks from the hardware store will do the same job cheaply and effectively. You can prevent any gun from being loaded or discharged with this method.
When it comes to firearm safety, we can use a lot of the locks we have available in our homes at hardware stores to secure the firearms we have in our house. Some examples I have here are simple bike lock. Very simple, common, found anywhere. But it can be used to secure this automatic, which is like most automatics, by just passing it through the eject port, right through the magazine well, and securing it at the bottom. Once that's done, the gun is virtually unusable. The slide cannot be put forward to chamber around, and it is in a situation where it cannot be fired. And it is not an exotic or specified gun lock that you can get from gun stores and specialty shops, such as this. This is the most common gun lock most people think of, and it operates by locking, as by the pictures you can see, into the trigger guard of the firearm. But it's, once again, very special. Another one we can use is a simple padlock. This is mostly for revolvers. Very simple. Take the revolver, open up the cylinder and simply lock the padlock through the top of the frame. Once that occurs, you cannot close the cylinder through the frame, and thereby completely makes the gun completely safe at that point. Once again, this is not a high buck item, and you can find it around most households, and any kind of padlock or key lock will work. The only thing a person needs to think about in this case is in the middle of the night, it's dark, you have a lock. Is it easier to find a key or have one accessible, or try to find light to open a padlock? So you have to answer that question yourself, but a simple lock will work in this case. Another very effective locking device that we've developed is the cable lock. This is very simply just a cable that has been secured on both ends that have a loop through it. You can secure any manner of firearms this way, pistols, rifles, shotguns, by just simply putting it through the magazine well and locking it, or in the case of the revolver or another automatic, putting it down the barrel and securing it that way. At this point, the firearm is completely secure. Now, the advantage here is to be able to use this for not only securing the gun from use, but also from theft. You can secure that to some other piece of equipment, an eye bolt, or some part of a closet or drawer to make sure somebody doesn't pick up and walk away with it. At this point, the gun is completely secure. You cannot close the cylinder all the way, it cannot chamber around, it cannot fire around. This is a keyed lock. You can also use combination locks in this case. Either one can be easily undone. And if for some reason you happen to lose the key or forget the combination, a simple snip and you can cut this. So it's not something that you would require a lot of specialized equipment in case you would happen to forget the combination or lose the key, which does happen.
Locked rooms will stop children from gaining entry to your gun collection. So will a gun safe. These are available in sizes ranging from a lockbox to a walk-in cabinet. Remember that each of these methods will work only if you use the locks and keep the keys secure. You should avoid handling guns in front of any child because children tend to copy adult behavior. Don't be afraid to talk to your children about gun safety. You can start by discussing television violence and comparing it to reality. Let your children know that guns are not used to settle an argument. Make it clear that damage done by a gun is devastating and permanent. Every parent knows to tell his children never to point a gun at anyone. Just as important, children must be told not to let anyone point a gun at them either. What is obvious to the adult is not obvious to the child. In a society where children use toy guns as playthings, keep in mind that kids can't always make the distinction between a dangerous weapon and a toy. Children should be taught to hide or run away if one of their friends displays a gun, even in play. Let your child know that if he ever finds a gun, he should never pick it up or touch it. Children should be taught to tell their parents or teacher right away whenever they come into contact with a firearm. Don't be afraid to talk to your neighbors and relatives about your concern for gun safety. Find out if they are taking the proper precautions with their firearms before you let your children visit. With just a few common sense precautions, your guns can be kept safe from your children and vice versa. Home security. Many homeowners buy guns as a security measure. While a firearm may be a good source of defense during a confrontation, most burglaries occur in unoccupied dwellings. If you're not at home when an intruder calls, your gun will do nothing at all to prevent theft. In fact, unless your guns are locked securely, the unarmed thief can become a well-armed thief. There are many types of home security, and we advise you to consider using one or more of them before you have an incident. The sad fact is, most people neglect home security until after they've had a break-in or worse. Lights can add to your security at home. Intruders would rather work in the dark to avoid detection. A little outside light will go a long way toward providing safety for your home. A well-lit entry makes it harder for would-be attackers to go undetected. Some security lights are equipped with motion sensors that are triggered only upon approach. These are relatively inexpensive and can be installed easily into existing outlets. A dog will be aware of an intruder long before you are. His bark will both alert you and scare away the prowler at the same time. Fences can keep prowlers out of your yard and keep strangers from straying onto your property. Deadbolts and quality locks are a good investment. They make gaining entry difficult for a would-be thief. Be sure to reinforce your sliding doors and windows. This can be done with locks, pins, or Charlie bars. Even a piece of wood, such as a broom handle inserted into a sliding door track, can keep the door from being opened from outside. Alarms can frighten off a thief and summon help. Make sure that you keep your alarm system in good working order with regular checks. Remember, alarms only work when they are armed. All of these methods help improve the general security of a home. When several of these methods are employed, you can be fairly certain that prowlers will look for an easier target. Firearms are the last line of defense in a home. Should all other security measures fail, a gun may be the only thing that keeps you from becoming a statistic. Make sure you know the legalities of when you can legally defend yourself with a gun. Keep in mind that most self-defense laws apply only to direct threats to your personal safety. Gunfire is not generally considered justifiable against the unarmed intruder or in protection of personal property. Every state and municipality has different weapons laws. Many law enforcement agencies hold classes to acquaint citizens with local gun codes. Don't become a victim of the law due to your ignorance. Think before you shoot. Personal security. Many types of crimes can be prevented by simply being more alert. Don't live in fear, but try to be observant. Pay attention while you're out driving in your car. Keep your doors locked and windows rolled up. Keep your purse on the floor rather than on the seat. Don't roll down your window if anyone approaches your car to ask directions. If you suspect you are being followed, don't go home. Drive to a public area and summon help. Keep an eye out for persons lurking near your car when it is parked. If you notice anyone who looks suspicious, do not approach your car. Leave and call for help. Check to be sure that no one is already inside your car before you get in. If there is, do not confront him. Just walk away and find help. Avoiding driveway robberies starts with awareness. Looking in the rearview mirror is the first line of defense. Being aware of the neighborhood also helps. If you know what cars should be around, it is easier to spot anyone that is out of place. If something doesn't look right, don't stop. Go to a well-populated area and call for help. If a robber blocks you in the driveway, stay in the car and honk the horn. Most robbers do not want to be noticed or outnumbered. If you can get someone to come out by honking, the robber will be likely to pass you by. Be alert when you return home. Keep an eye out for intruders outside your house. If you feel that someone has been or is now inside your home, do not go inside. Summon the police and let them check for you. Never try to surprise an intruder. Don't be afraid to call the police anytime you see or hear something unusual. The police would rather check out your suspicions than to see you injured while trying to be a hero. If you should ever find yourself face to face with an intruder, you should know the proper way to hold him at bay while you wait for help to arrive. Keep your distance. Don't make it easy for him to grab or lunge at you. Make sure the intruder stays seated, facing away from you. Make him sit on the floor instead of in a chair. By keeping him at an obvious physical disadvantage, he will be less apt to attempt an escape. Make sure his hands stay in sight. Have him raise his hands in the air or clasp them together behind his head. Do not engage in any conversation. This is not a social visit. He will try to dissuade and distract you.
Listen, this is just a big misunderstanding. Listen, the cops will take them at least an hour to get here, if they do, and you know, just it's going to waste your time. It's going to waste my time. Might as well just let me go.
Don't look at me.
Stay calm and wait for the police.
Inside my house. I've got a gun on him. Send a squad car right away.
If you think you may ever be in a situation where you have to fire a gun to defend yourself, there are several things you should consider. Recoil. It is a common myth that many large caliber weapons are difficult to handle because of recoil. Become familiar with the weapon of your choice and test fire it. Despite rumors to the contrary, even a small woman can easily handle the kick of a .44 Magnum with a little practice. Caliber. Choose the caliber of your weapon with care. Bigger is not always better. Large caliber handguns can do a lot of damage to their target. If that target ends up to be a person, these weapons produce wounds that are almost always fatal. Keep in mind that if you live in an apartment, townhouse, or a condominium, bullets fired from large caliber weapons will go through doors and walls if they miss their intended target. You probably have never considered that the neighbor sitting next door could become an accidental target if you were ever forced to fire your gun indoors. We suggest that you try for minimum rather than maximum firepower whenever possible. Rifles and shotguns. Handguns are not the only type of firearms that can be used for home protection. Many sportsmen and hunters own rifles or shotguns which they keep at home. Rifles are primarily designed for long-distance shooting. In close quarters, they can prove to be an awkward choice. Of all firearm choices, rifles can be the most difficult to operate in a close-in emergency situation. These high-powered weapons will shoot bullets through most standard building materials. Think very carefully before reaching for this gun. For instant stopping power, you just can't beat a shotgun. The large pellet spray pattern ensures that even the most inexperienced shooter will probably hit his target. Just the sound of a cartridge being jacked into the chamber will cause most intruders to flee without further incident. Unloaded guns. Children are not the largest category of people injured by firearms. There are more adults maimed in shooting accidents every year than children. A lot of these injuries are self-inflicted. More people are accidentally shot with supposedly unloaded guns than any other way. This happens for several reasons.
Accidental discharges have a few things in common. The most prevalent of the commonalities is the fact that it's usually after a series of errors are mistakes are made. The gun never shoots itself. The firearm is usually put in a situation where it's loaded and the person does not know it's loaded, or a person reloads it after they unload it and is not aware of the fact they have just reloaded the firearm. A real common mistake with automatics is the fact that a lot of newer automatics, 9mm to be sure, are called Wonder 9s. They're made to have a round in the chamber and fired what's called double action the first time. A long trigger pull that has the hammer go back and go forward and fire the round, eject the spent casing, and rechamber the round. Now, what happens is a round is in the chamber to start with. So when a gun is stored, either in a holster, in a bag, in a line case, a round is in the chamber, and the magazine is full. When you want to unload the firearm, you have to remember, you take the magazine out first, work the action to remove the round that's inside. What happens on occasion, the round's in the chamber. They work the action, the round that's in the chamber comes out. The round that was in the magazine is rechambered, and now a person takes out the magazine. They think it's unloaded. There's actually still a round in the chamber ready to go off when the hammer is lowered by pulling the trigger. This is an accident ready to happen, and it happens all too frequently. The person pulls the trigger, it goes off, and the first thing they say is, "I didn't know it was loaded." And unfortunately, the young child, the wife, the TV set, the dishwasher, the microwave that got shot does not know the difference. Now, revolvers, it's safer because it's easier to see when a revolver is either loaded or unloaded. You take the cylinder out, you can check to see it. If it's empty, look down, see 6 empty holes. Even then, the person can be fooled and just not see what's there. But it's harder to make a mistake with a revolver. Certain things people have to understand. Guns are not to be played with, and certainly not to be used under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Your judgment does get impaired, your reaction time does get impaired, the person doesn't think clearly. And if that happens, you are asking for trouble. When you have a pistol in your hand and you want to hand it to somebody, you want to make sure the pistol is completely safe when you hand it to them. It's empty and safety is on. When you receive a pistol, even though you may have seen them clear the pistol just before you, you need to check it again. They could have made a mistake. You need to take the pistol in your hand, make sure the magazine is out or take it out. Clear the pistol. Make sure there's nothing in the breech. Visually check to make sure there's nothing in the breech. Go to the point of locking the slide back on automatic, looking at the breech and making sure by feel there's nothing chambered. So you are 100% sure the gun is safe. And you need to do that as you're receiving the pistol and when you're handing it over. Never hand a loaded pistol to somebody else. Tragedy can result. Using a revolver, very similar. Open the cylinder. Make sure the cylinder is clear. Visually check it, both the cylinder and the barrel. Make sure the gun is unloaded. Hand it to the person unloaded and receive it unloaded, and double check when you do get it back in your hands. Make sure the pistol is unloaded by visually checking all the cylinders. A very common occurrence is in the middle of the night, a noise is heard. You go outside, see something moving in the dark. First reflex is to cock the gun. Now what? It was a cat. You now have a cocked gun in your hand, and you're not really familiar with firearms. First thing you got to do is find a way to make the gun safe. Now, a couple ways of doing it is to take the gun outside, preferably with hearing protectors on, and try to lower the hammer. You do so by putting your thumb firmly on the hammer and lightly on the trigger. Pointing in a very safe direction, straight to the ground where you know it is safe. Lightly release the trigger till the hammer starts to move and slowly lower the hammer. Slowly lower the hammer. The gun will not go off if it's properly done. If you're unsure about this process, another way of doing it is to simply turn the gun towards the ground and pull the trigger, just firing the round into the ground. Now for revolver or automatic, it's a little bit different. Same occurrence happens, you end up with a loaded, cocked pistol in your hand. What you want to do in this case with an automatic is to remove the clip so there's only one bullet left in the chamber. Now, the problem with this is some pistols, your pistol may have this feature, does not fire with the clip removed. So what you would have to do is take the clip out, the magazine, remove all the shells from it except the one that's still in here, and put it back in. What you're left with is still a gun with a round in the chamber and it's cocked. You'd want to take it outside and do the one or two things. Either try to lower the hammer while having the gun pointed in a safe direction, or just taking it outside, pointing it towards the ground, and pulling the trigger, making sure it is in a safe direction. You do not want to go ahead and have a cocked and locked pistol in your house. It is a very unsafe condition. But more times than not, people in gun shops have stories of people coming to their gun shops with cocked and loaded pistols that they cannot uncock or unload, and that's definitely tragedy waiting to happen.
A little knowledge can be a dangerous thing. Before you attempt to use any firearm, make sure you understand how it works. It is your responsibility to operate and store your firearm in a safe manner. Read your manual, then practice your aim on a gun range. Familiarize yourself with state and local gun laws. You can do this by contacting your local police or sheriff's office. Gun safety does not happen by itself. It takes a conscious effort on your part. Common sense and caution must apply anytime you keep a gun in the house.